Welcome back to Stuff About Money podcast. This is your co-host Erik Garcia, and today I am joined with a good friend of mine, Bradley Flowers. Bradley is the one of the co-hosts of the Insurance Guys podcast and owner of Portal Insurance. Bradley, what's happening?
What's up, man? Good to be on here with you.
I think this might be the first time that you're on my podcast. I've been on yours before, but I
I
don't know if
did
you've ever.
I did one with you and Xavier.
Did you
Was
do
that
one? Okay,
the podcast?
it might have been. It probably was. It probably was. But
Yeah,
fun fact, you named this podcast.
I did.
You
I
did.
did. Well, I mean, it's not. I mean, I didn't do anything magical. It was just like this is what you should do.
Yeah, stuff about
You
money.
like
They did
it.
teach you in school, so that's great. So thank you
Yeah,
publicly. If I've
a
never
clock,
thanked you publicly, thank you.
a wrong clock is right twice a day. So I
And
mean,
every now and then you strike gold, huh?
yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
okay, so
15 bad ideas to every one good one.
that's perfect. It's a perfect intro to what I want to talk about today, and you probably did that intentionally because that's how you are. A broken clock is right twice a day. I want to talk about this idea about success is about making less bad decisions. All right, we're going to kind of tease that out as we go, but this conversation started probably about a month and a half ago. I sent you a text and it was related to golf because I know you're a golfer. I think you were number one. You were number one like in virtual golf in the world for
And
a
so I
time,
was the
right?
number two VR golfer in the world for like 6 months.
Is that
And
like
now I'm like 400th and something. Yeah, no, I play it every night before I go to bed. And I don't play real golf anymore. I get it out of my system through that.
you just play virtual golf now?
Every night for 20 minutes, it's the last thing I do before I go to bed is I go whip somebody's butt in virtual golf. Some like 15-year-old somewhere, another part of the world.
How does that
Yeah.
translate to like real golf? Like if you were to go out there, does it like mess with your swing?
So it's the close. Yes, it does. It does a lot. It's the closest game to what the real life activity of any game that I've ever played is.
Do you have an
And
actual club? Are you swinging an actual club?
I have an attachment on the controller that's like a golf club handle, and it's got the weight of a real golf club. But here's how I know it's accurate is my misses in real life
Mhm.
are my same misses on virtual golf. And the things I'm good at in virtual golf. The things I'm bad at, I'm bad at. So it's fairly accurate. But what's cool is they have a deal with the PGA Tour. So about 3 out of 4 weeks, whatever course the PGA Tour is playing that week, I'm playing the exact same tournament at the exact same conditions. So
Wild.
it's like it's really
Wow.
that's my like my wife and I joined a Bible study and we were like meeting all the people, and they're like, all right, tell us one thing about yourself and what do you like to do to unwind? And my wife answered for me. She's like, I'm going to answer for Bradley because he's going to be too embarrassed to tell you guys. He plays VR golf every night. And I was like, yeah, I do. And then afterwards, I had like four guys come up to me like, how do I get this game? Where do I sign up? So
That's hysterical. That's
yeah,
hysterical. So anyway, so I had shoulder surgery last year. And even before that, it was hurting, so I wasn't playing much golf. And I finally decided I got to get back out there. A lot of clients play golf. A lot of my friends play golf, and it's just opportunities
yeah,
to go out there and hang out with people and whatnot. So it's
a
like
lot of friends.
yeah, I got to get back into golf. So I shot you a text and I said, do you think the way to get better at golf, or I think I might have posed the question, if I want to improve my score, do I get better at shooting better shots or do I try to minimize my bad shots?
It's
What did you
minimizing bad shots,
minimize
100%.
bad shots?
There was a golf coach here. So I played golf. I played in college. From 2007 to 2012, I played every single day.
Wasn't your coach like also a coach of someone?
So my college golf coach, I played at the same junior college as Bubba Watson.
Bob Watson. Okay, that's what I
So
thought.
my college golf coach, Coach Bubba Watson, and several other PGA Tour guys, and we were the golf at this school was the only sport that won a national championship that at that point. I think baseball won it a few years later. So the golf guys were like how the football players would be
Yeah.
at like LSU. You know what I mean? Um, so and they had Bubba, and that was the years that I were there was around the time Bubba was like winning majors and stuff. So the coach was really popular, but there was another coach. There was like a swing instructor guy here locally. He lives in I think Colorado now, named Ron Green, and he was like a $300 an hour coach, which was like insane money. Now there's like the top golf coach in the world lives in Birmingham, Alabama, and he charges like 1,500 an hour. But
Holy
back then,
smokes.
300 was like top of the. And I got two lessons from him because that's all I could afford. And the first lesson, I remember him telling me, he was like, "Man, he's like, your good shots, nothing to do with me particularly. He's like, but a decent golfer's good shots are exactly the same as a PGA Tour golfer's good shots.
Mm,
Their bad shots are not as bad as yours. And so it's 100% about limiting the misses. And if you look at like one of my favorite majors ever was Tiger Woods, who's one of my favorite players in 2006, won the British Open after his dad died. And Tiger's peak, his worst club was his driver because
yep.
swings so fast, all the torque. I mean, he would hit it off of the planet, and much like me, and just not as far. And I wouldn't hit as far, but he that tournament, I think he hit one driver the entire tournament. Every tee shot was a 3 iron. He called it his 3 iron stinger.
Mm,
It's just a low. He just bunted it out there. And
yeah.
what's he doing? He's limiting his mistakes. He's limiting his misses. So that's that's how I look at golf is what can I do? You know, if I'm slicing the ball, okay, freaking aim left and slice it into the fairway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Or I don't carry, I traditionally haven't carried a driver in my golf bag because like I can't control it. I can't hit
I've
it
done that
straight.
before
So
too. Yeah,
it's like I'd rather tee off.
I played tournaments before back when I was playing tournaments and would hit no drivers. I would just hit a 3 wood.
Yeah. Or
So
a 3 wood or even a 5 iron. But I was playing golf. I played golf a couple weeks ago with a buddy of mine. He's a little bit older and just kind of just more wise. And if I hit it, if I catch it right, I can hit it far.
yeah,
So I'm in the fairway, and he's like, what you want to do is just take an 8 iron, lay it up. You want to leave yourself about 125 out. I'm like, nah, I can probably hit the green from here with another club. He goes, don't do it. There's a lot of trouble over there, and you're going to have a lot. Long story short, I listened to him. I laid
yeah.
it up, and I was on the green, and
Oh, and that's the thing about the VR golf. Okay, so I'm playing against mostly video game nerds that have never played golf, and so the way that I beat them is with course management.
mm,
Because if there's a pin that's like tucked and it's on like the right side of the green, there's not much margin for error. I'll go at the middle of the green. They're shooting for the pin. Yeah, they may hit one good shot and beat me on one hole, but I'm aiming at the middle of the green. I'm two putting. I'm maybe making the putt. You know what I mean? Like you play to your misses, and it's that course management of like, okay, yeah, I could hit driver here and have a wedge in, but there's water right. So if I miss it right, I'm taking two strokes versus I could hit a 3 iron and now I have 180 in, but I'm getting rid of like
yeah,
the catastrophic hole. And there was a kid here, so PGA Tour Q School, which is the qualifying tournament to get in the PGA Tour. They have I think three uh three levels. So it's like level one, level two, level three. You got to make it through all three. Level two was in Mobile here a couple weeks ago, and I'm in a Facebook group with a bunch of golfers, and there was a local kid that was trying to qualify, and there's a guy here locally that played on tour years ago, and he commented on this kid's post. He's like, "Hey, wish me luck," and he said, "Shoot two under a side, so two under per nine. You don't have to go shoot 60. If you don't have the perfect number to a pin, hit it to the middle of the green."
mm, yeah,
And kid qualified.
yeah.
And it's
It's-
like that's it. People in life and business, and I'm sure this is where we'll segue, is like everybody swings for the home run when it's the guy or the gal that's just chipping away at it and like
yeah.
knows themselves really well. And we're all guilty of trying to hit a home run every now and then, but those are the people that usually end up ahead.
Well, there's a time and there's a place to swing for the fences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like I have mentors that I think have been too conservative,
Hmm.
and I heard a quote recently, actually from Alex Ramosi, who we were talking about before, that opportunities look like risk, and when they finally look like opportunities look like risks, and when they don't, they're no longer opportunities. So you got to look for those moments of like, okay, I can be a little bit aggressive here, but you can't be aggressive all the time.
Well,
So
there's risk in anything we do,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I remember a friend of mine once, he goes, man, Eric, everything you do, you're successful at. And I'm like, how so? And he was referencing the businesses and whatnot. And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, but I'm not going to jump into something if I don't feel like I can be successful at it. That's not me saying I don't take risks, because anytime you start a business, there's a risk. But like, I'm not going to try to do something that I don't feel like I can be successful. I'm just not going to do it, right? And the friend I played golf with, this kind of ties into that. He said the difference between amateurs and pros is pros are happy hitting a par. He goes, amateurs want to hit birdies. He goes, but pros are happy hitting pars. They get it. Like you go back to course management. Like I'm happy having a successful business. I don't need to take a big risk and possibly double bogey.
Yeah.
I'm happy at par.
But what a pro is going to do is they're going to go on a just a above average round is they're going to birdie all the par fours. They're going to make one or two long putts, and they're going to hit one or two shots really close. And then everything outside of that is going to look like an average golfer.
Yeah. I mean, it's
That's
if I can
that.
birdie if I can birdie every par four, hit a couple long putts, and then everything doesn't leave much else, I'm okay
Well,
with that.
what's interesting too is like so like the course that I grew up playing at is known as like the gamblers course. Like that's where you
Mm.
go if you want to gamble. And I mean, I've seen guys like lose, you know, 4 or 5 figures out there. Sometimes I've seen guys win that much. And I grew up playing in that environment. And that particular course, uh, during the winter would we would have PGA Tour golfers come out there and practice in the winter because there was some really good golfers out there, so they knew people would kind of leave them alone, but they could get a game in the off season.
Hmm.
There's a saying, it's Atmore Country Club. There's a saying that you do not go out to Atmore Country Club between Christmas and New Year unless your game is sharp because there's some killers out there. And so we would have PGA Tour. I mean, I've got a dollar bill in my office framed $2 that I won off of a PGA Tour golfer that had literally gotten back, played the Ryder Cup that year. So like, not that I was PGA Tour, I was far from it, far from it. Um, but like on any given day, it's the only sport in the world. Like on any given day, you know what I mean?
Well, isn't that what keeps us going back as amateurs? Because that one birdie I had, that one good shot, I want to do it again, right? Like it gets in you. Like I'm chasing that, right? I can
Yeah,
hit one
exactly.
birdie. I can hit one birdie and bogey golf, everything else, but like I'm coming back because I remember that birdie.
So we played that. I don't think I've ever told this. So we played that round of golf. So there's this PGA Tour golfer that come out there, really popular guy. He's on the Champions Tour now. And my buddy Tyler had never played with him before, and I'd played with him a couple times. And so we're coming. It's a 9-hole course. We're on number one. We're about to tee off, and him and this other guy are on number nine. He's like, I want to play with him. I want to play with him. Like, look, they're not going to play with us unless we play with them for some money. And he's like, okay, cool. And so they come up there, and he's kind of messing around with us. He's like, all right, guys, like we're gonna do dollar a hole, $2 a birdie. So nothing crazy, you know. So we tee off, and my buddy goes, hey man, we better play good because I don't have any money. And this is before Venmo and stuff. And granted, like the most we could lose would not be a lot of money. But I'm like, we just literally teed off against the guy who played in the Ryder Cup this year, which is like the pinnacle of the sport. And you don't have any money. So we were coming around. We barely had enough time before dark to play 9 holes. And we get on the seventh hole. I made eagle. My partner made eagle. The pro made eagle, and his partner made birdie. So we went up by $1. And we're on the eighth hole, and I have a 20-foot putt for birdie. Nobody else has a birdie putt, and I'm like, if I make this putt, we can't lose. And
Did you
I
not have any money either?
no, I had money. I had money. I had
Okay.
gambling. I had a little stash in my golf bag.
Okay.
And at one point, I had like 4 grand in my golf bag. That was my slush fund. But I think it's been long enough with statute of limitations. The IRS won't come after me. But I ended up losing it all. But I made the putt, and the pro out of the corner, out of like my ear, I heard him go, mm. And that was like, these kids just beat us. Like we were kids, like we were like 19 and 20, and these kids
Awesome.
just beat us. We can't win.
That's
And so
awesome.
we go around on number nine, and it's winter time, clubhouse full of people. It's cold. We're the only people on course. And I tell Tyler, I was like, hey, when we get done on number nine, run straight to the clubhouse. Do not let them pay you in the parking lot. He's like, why? I'm like, we want everybody to see them paying us. So that's what we did. And I have it framed here. Everybody's like, "Oh, is that your first dollar?" I'm like, "Actually, no, that's not that."
Did you get it autographed?
I didn't because he was pretty pissed off that he lost. And that would have just so I had a signed picture of me and him that I'd gotten a few like a year or so before, and I put it in front of the signed picture.
That's cool. That's cool. So, okay. So earlier you started making the
Where we're going.
segue. You started making the segue for me, and I brought us back. I brought us back to golf, and I'm glad I did because that was a good story right there. But let's talk about this relationship between making less bad shots and scoring better in golf to making less bad financial decisions, helping you become more financially successful. Let's call it that. What do you think about that? Like, can we make that jump?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think that you see it a lot, man, in business where people get themselves in trouble or go bankrupt or whatever. And I don't profess to be like the perfect businessman or anything like that, but to me, it's always the people that try to get rich quick or
Mm,
skip the process from a business standpoint, not even really investing, but especially investing. It's the people that are trying to find a shortcut that end up getting burned. Yeah, it might work out, but like it's always time and time again. I mean, we've seen it with insurance agencies. Like you and I have probably seen a few insurance agencies or groups or companies or carriers that come in and they play it a little too close to the sun
hmm
and it's biting them.
Yeah.
Where like the whole insurance game, and I know this is an insurance podcast, that's the business I'm in, is it's a slow and steady build up. It's not a rocket ship to the top. And from an investing standpoint, I think it pays to be somewhat conservative and pick your spots because if you're not too careful, that's where you can really get hurt. And we were talking before the episode about like just the S&P 500. Like if you don't know what to do, like that's a great place to start. You know what I mean? And I think that's why like our friend Dave Ramsey is so popular because a lot of the advice he gives people, you're not gonna go bankrupt. You might not get super rich, but you're not gonna go bankrupt. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, there's a couple things that you said there that I want to come back to. One was this idea of getting rich quick, right? Swinging for the fences and getting rich quick. I remember having a conversation with a neighbor once, and he was well off. He had done well, and I didn't realize this. He had built multiple like stashes of wealth, and then lost multiple stashes of wealth, and was doing well at the time we're having this conversation. And I remember asking him. I said, "Hey, if you wouldn't have continued taking the same risk the first time, right? You made your wealth, then you took a big risk, you lost it, right? You had to make it back. You took another risk, you lost it. If you wouldn't have continued to take those bigger risks, where would you be today? Would you be in a better off spot or a worse spot?" And it almost as if he never considered that question. And he
Yeah.
thought about it. It kind of paused him. He thought about it and he said, I'd probably be better off than where I am
He
today.
probably went back inside and cried.
Right? Yeah, like dang it, dang it. But that those are those scenarios that make me think like, man, like, hmm, there's a time for risk,
Yeah.
right? And then there's a time to moderate that
Yeah, for
risk.
sure.
That if
Eh,
we make
Go ahead.
Now I was gonna say if we make less bad decisions, especially after we've had some success, then we can have more success.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like my whole strategy in a nutshell is to never put all the chips on the table
Mm,
like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm never going to put everything at risk. And you know, I think it's having good people around you
yeah.
because it's easier if I call you with a problem in my business, it's easier for you to see the answer than it is for me because you're not emotionally invested in it and
Yeah.
vice versa. And so I keep people around me for almost every scenario in life, personal, business, whatever, health, and lean on them for their advice. Like one of my employees came to me the other day with a problem that we had never encountered. And she said it to me, and I was just like silent. And she was like, weren't you, are you having a stroke? Why aren't you saying anything? And I was like, no, I'm going through my mental Rolodex of who I know that's dealt with this problem before. And I thought of a person, called him. He's like, this is
Yeah.
what you and and so I'll give you an example too. Like, so like we bought an agency in January It's the biggest purchase I've ever made in my life. Um, I'm very emotional when it comes to spending money. My wife is not. My wife is very financially savvy, and if something makes good business sense or good money sense, she does it with no emotion involved. Something can make all the sense in the world to me, and I'll still like shake when I write the check, you know? And so I was buying this agency. It was a big purchase, and I finally got to the point where I was like, I need to call somebody. So I called Kerry Wallace, who's
Hmm.
my fractional CFO, and I was like, look, I'm too in stitches to make this decision on my own, and this is getting pretty close to closing.
Yeah.
I just need you to tell me if it makes sense for me to do this or not. And if you don't think I should do it, I'm not going to do it. If you think I should do it, I'm going to do it. Not to put too much pressure on you,
Yeah.
And so I think having people around you and not like some of the business owners I've seen that have failed or done really bad recently that I'm close to are people that are too afraid to ask people for help or ask questions.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they want to put it all on them. And like, you ain't got it all. You don't have all the answers, but four or five people collectively can have most of the answers.
Yeah, this is interesting because one of the questions I was going to ask you was how do you minimize the bad financial decisions you make?
Kerry
And
Wallace.
Carrie Wallace. Carrie's a friend of the show, y'all. Carrie's
Yeah.
been on the show, been on her show a couple times.
She's
100%.
she's in
Carrie,
financials, and I don't make a big purchase without calling her and saying, hey, like I need a new computer, and I literally put on my to-do list today to call her and be like, hey, can I buy this computer? Like I that's just how I'd rather not have to worry about that. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Carrie was integral in not me bringing Joe on board on the insurance side. Joe works for me
Shout
on the
Joe.
insurance side. What's up, Joe? Shout out to Joe if he gets to this point in the podcast. But in just talking through it with her, it
Yeah.
was integral. But I like that idea of minimizing bad decisions by surrounding yourself with people who, number one, know you, right?
Yeah.
If we run with this, that Carrie knows your finances, so
Right.
you can throw a scenario out to her, and it doesn't take her a couple weeks to file through your finances. She knows them.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, this is where you're tracking, like you have
yeah,
this left over. Yeah. Or like if we're gonna hire a computer's that's silly example, but like if we're gonna hire somebody, like, hey, I want to hire this person, where does that put me at? One thing that we track is percentage of payroll as it relates to revenue. Where does that put me at? Am I on the benchmark there?
yeah,
Revenue per employee, and how much can I pay them, and what does the comp structure need to be?
yeah,
Because a lot of times I think as small business owners, we tend to just pull stuff out of our butt, like, oh, I'm going to pay this person this. And you end up with people with compensation structures all over the place. And then they start talking and they're like, wait a minute, such and
yeah.
such has been here less time and they're making less than this person. But I'll tell you something else too that you made me think of. And I want so bad to like deliver a presentation to like a group of high school or college students, but nobody's asked me yet. Something I've been thinking about a lot, and you mentioned like your neighbor like always trying to swing for the fences and get ahead, is that there's a misconception, especially with college students, about to graduate college students, that success is linear. That, okay, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to get this high paying job, and I'm only going to go up from there. This job, this job, this job, this job. It's a straight line. Success is not linear. It's like this. It's up and down. Like sometimes you may have to take a low paying job in order to be put ahead, right?
Hmm.
It's like the whole like slingshot analogy. The further you get pulled back, the further you go. And college students tend to, at least the ones I've talked to, tend to think that like, okay, once I graduate college, the job is done. And it's almost like an NFL player, like college player graduates, goes to like a Jamarcus Russell, goes to the NFL and thinks the job is done. Like, no, that the job is just starting. And it's the people that always try to just go up that end up getting stuck at an income level or at a success level. And it's the ones that are willing to take a step back, not necessarily risk, but just like take a step back and say, okay, okay, I have this job that'll pay me 150, but I have this one here that'll pay me 80, but it's a way bigger opportunity.
Hmm.
But no, I don't want to make less money. I want to go here. And in my opinion, in your 20s, that's when you can take those kind of job risks. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
that's when you can afford.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when you can afford to make a quote unquote bad decision, right? You have time to recover. It's the
Yeah,
same thing in the
exactly.
investment world, right? Like if I'm close to needing to access my money, then like I probably don't want to invest in a high risk portfolio. But if I've
Yeah,
got 30 years ahead of me, I can take a little bit more risk with the
exactly.
potential for reward.
Yeah, so it's like with me, like with my story, I was working for a life insurance company. I was making like 80 probably, and I took a job where my salary was 15K.
Hmm.
But it was because I was working for a guy who really knew PNC and was a really top agency, and I wanted to learn PNC. And then
Interesting.
I went up to like I was at like 160 at my next gig after that. And then when I started Portal, I didn't make any money for 3 years, you
Yeah.
know.
Are you
And now,
making money yet?
oh yeah,
Okay.
we're good now. But that's one thing I want to impart on younger people as it relates to like success in their careers is like it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a client come to me once, and this client, business owner, owned a franchise, was making good money, supporting everything that they wanted to do in their life, funding their retirement accounts totally, with some extra funds. And he had a little bit of liquidity on the side, some cash. And some other business owners that he knew came to him knowing that he had cash because these guys wanted to start another business. So like, hey, we want you to be partners with us. We'll operate. We just need your cash, and then we're going to go out and get a loan, so we can fund this new business.
Sounds too good
So
to be true.
what's that?
Sounds too good to be true.
Well, it was an interesting opportunity. So we're at lunch, and he's kind of, and I've been working with this guy for a long time. So like he's a client of mine. Like I know his finances inside and out, know his family, know his values, everything. And I said, why would you do that? He goes, why wouldn't I do that? I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I said, okay, what happens if that venture fails? He goes, I guess we have to pay the note off. I said, who's going to pay the note? He goes, I guess it's going to fall on me. I said, okay, so you're going to have no liquidity and you're stuck paying a two or $3,000 note and there's no revenue coming in. That's going to impact everything you built.
Yeah.
And he stopped and thought about it, and he said, so I shouldn't do it. I said, no, I'm not going to tell you to do it or not do it. I'm just going to say you took your risk, you're making your money. You need to consider the type of risk you want to take moving forward. Is making a little bit more money worth risking everything that you've already built? He didn't do it. It's a good thing he didn't do it because the venture wasn't successful.
Yeah.
Um, but this idea of how do I minimize bad decisions? Surround yourself with people who. I mean, this is a big part of what financial planning is, right? Like there's some ongoing stuff as a financial planner that we do for our clients, but there's
Yeah.
some aspects of it, particularly for our business owner clients. I got a client, and he said, "This is what I asked him. I said, what value do I bring to the table?" And he said, "You help me make risk-aware decisions." Risk awareness. And I thought about that. I'm like, man, I never really considered that a service that we offer. Like we help you make risk aware decisions. Let's consider the risk.
Used to be a slogan.
I could do that, man, huh? Maybe that should be the podcast, risk aware, just risk aware finances. No.
It's interesting. Like one thing I look at things because I get opportunities thrown to me every day. And one thing that I've looked at is not only like what happens if this goes belly up? My thing is like, how much of my time is this going to take? You know what I mean? Because so we started Portal and then I started a marketing company that ran like parallel to Portal. We did like marketing for other insurance agents. And that company made money from day one. And I sold it. And I had other projects too, but I sold that company 2 years in and came out. Yeah, I mean, it was worth my time, but I was like, okay, this company's profiting like 60 grand a year, but Portal's at a point to where we could really do good.
Mhm.
I mean, so it was like, hey, let's cut this thing off. I'm going to stop doing this. Like at the time, I was doing like a lot of like calls with agents that needed help and that sort of thing with consulting stuff. And I was like, hey, just because you can make money at something doesn't mean that you should if you take your eye off the main prize. Because like purebred, like entrepreneur business owner folks, like we get really distracted sometimes with too many projects. Like I've got a couple buddies right now that I wish would come to me and say, "Hey, where do you think I'm screwing up?" And I'd be like, "You're doing too many things." Like it's so because like when you're an entrepreneur, especially if you've had some success, or let's say you're a successful investor, you see the good in everything. Like you see the
Yeah.
opportunity in
There's
everything.
opportunity
You can see
everywhere.
it
Right.
past
Yeah.
most people, but when in reality, what you should be doing is like let's focus on the main thing, and then as little things come up, maybe we do those things. Like I had a company that around that time that I had a buddy that was starting a mortgage company, mortgage brokerage, and he wanted me to be his partner, and essentially my function would be like the marketing. And I wanted to do it because at the time, Portal's main source of business were mortgage brokers. So I wanted to learn that business. And he gave me too much equity. And I wasn't spending enough time in the business. We
Hmm.
never had that conversation of like, hey, what exactly are you going to be doing? And it was just very dysfunctional. And so around the time I sold the marketing company, I sold my shares back to him for $0. I was like, I just want this off my plate. And
Yeah.
and I don't want to ruin a friendship at the same time, you know?
Hmm. I remember having a conversation with you. It might be on recorded on one of the first times I came onto your show. And we're talking about business owners who had multiple businesses. And I think the conversation was something along the lines of when if the two businesses are adjacent to each other, they kind of work in parallel. It makes sense, right? To operate two businesses. You had the marketing company, you were doing marketing for your business. It made sense. Like your
Yep.
resources could go into one place. It wasn't too different. And then as the businesses grow, they demand more of you, and then those businesses are no longer adjacent to each other. They're very
Yeah.
different. They demand a
Yeah.
lot more.
I think your first, second business should be either the same industry, different product, or same product, different industry.
Say that one more time.
Same industry,
Okay.
different product, or same product, different industry.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. So I actually own two insurance agencies. Nobody really knows this. So I have another insurance agency that I'm a 25% owner in that does we do direct to consumer renters insurance for people moving into apartment complexes. So the other partner owns a company that's an app that when people move into apartment complexes, they sign their lease, sign up for their utilities, all the stuff, and then the renters insurance is embedded in there. So it's the same industry, completely different product.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to run both. It actually the renters thing, it takes very little of my time. Um, the flip side of that would be the marketing thing, right? It was different industry, similar product.
Yeah.
So like I think you should have at least for your first second business, you should and I do think you should diversify to some degree, but the thing is when you've got one company that's like really a killer, you need to devote like 80% of your time to that. And for me that's Portal. Like it's funny, I was telling somebody the other day, like my podcast is the thing I'm most known for. It's like less than 5% of my time. Like I
Really?
don't
Yeah.
other than recording and then maybe like one meeting a month, like with a partner or like this morning
Yeah.
I had a pre-call with a CEO that we're having him on the podcast and I had to give him a heads up that my co-host is crazy. Other than that stuff, like I don't spend any time on that. So like I look for optimizing time, not necessarily dollars.
Yeah. So if we start talking about this idea of how do we minimize our bad decisions, number one, surround yourself with good people. Number two, have focus, right? Try to stay focused on one thing, or at least have the end
Yeah.
you're trying to build to in mind and run things through that lens, right? Is there anything else that you do that you would say, hey, this is how I minimize a bad financial decision?
Yeah. I don't put all your chips on the table. Like,
Okay, yeah,
I do some speculative investing in insure tech companies like at the seed level. And I write checks that are so small if the money disappeared out of my account, I wouldn't notice.
yeah,
And a lot of that is like we did. So I'll tell the story because I've never told it before, I don't think. So the first two companies I ever invested in, the second one exited
okay,
in 2 years. It was a failing company. I joined the board with a lot of people that you know. We turned it around, hired a new CEO, and we sold that company in 2 years. Was a really good return. I didn't put that much in, so it wasn't like life-changing money, but it was good. There was some people in there I think that did make life-changing money. The first company I invested in, the founder went to prison,
oh wow,
so I'm two for two. And
Hey,
it was an business incubator that had an insurance component. One of the companies that they were incubating was an insurance carrier that actually Portal does business with today. They're still around, but yeah, the founder went to prison. But I in those deals, like I never put in more than I can afford to lose. It's like
mhm.
gambling. It's the closest thing to gambling that there is.
Yeah.
And but I like so that second one I did that we made money on, like I learned so much that when I am ready to write $100,000, $150,000 check to one, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm
Yeah.
doing it to learn the ropes of like this is what the inside and a lot of stuff that I've learned in those meetings, especially with that second company, I use in Portal today. Like I remember we were going to hire a person in a really high level role and the salary was 240K. And one of the board members raised his hand and he's like, "Hey, what if this is a $240,000 mistake?" And
Mm.
another board member that's very, very smart, if I said his name, you would say, "Yeah, that's a smart dude," said it's not a $240,000 mistake. It's a $60,000 mistake because if we get 3 months in and it's this person's not cutting it, we'll just let them go. And so like that's a
Yeah.
mindset that I use now with hiring people at Portal. And it sort of freed me up a little bit. It's like, okay, if you have the discipline to recognize when it's not working, because so many business owners hire people, they're not really working out, but they don't have the discipline to let them go or to part ways.
That's yeah, that's brilliant,
And
right?
that's how you end up with bloat
Yeah.
in a company. You know, every single business owner listening to this probably has some bloat somewhere, you
Hmm.
know. And but that's the reason I do those little small investments is to somehow benefit me in some kind of other way. And even that first one that the dude went to prison, I knew I would never and I invested $5,000, right? It was not a lot of money. I had no business investing $5,000 in anything at that time, by the way. I was 22 or 23, but I did it because so me and a buddy did it together. So the minimum investment was like 10. So we pooled our money together and did it together. He did it to make money.
Hmm.
I did it because I was new to this area and I needed connections.
I gotcha.
There was some smart people at that place outside of the founder who was shady. And so I did it just because I wanted to walk into that building and be known as one of the investors and build connections, which are some still really good connections that I have to this day. So when the thing went belly up and the dude, he went on the lam and they called him like 2 years later. There's actually an HBO documentary about this business. Thankfully, I'm not in it. Um,
Jeez.
but that the dude I did it with was pissed because he did it to
Yeah.
make I did it because I want this
Yeah.
secondary thing. If I end up if I make 5,001 dollar back, I'm good.
It's like tuition. I paid $5,000 and I got the best education and connections that otherwise would never have been able to make.
Yeah, it's like the thing of like this like cliche like hustle porn. These guys say this like go find like the most successful person you get into contact with and when you graduate college and offer to work for free. But like the experience you'll get from being that close to this, like that's very cheesy, but like it's true.
Hmm.
You know, it's just like me taking that huge pay cut to go to work for that person. Like I learned a ton. You know, like your education is really the only thing that can't be taken away from you.
Yeah. It's the oh man, a buddy of mine is the director of the program of entrepreneurship at Tulane. I forget the name of the actual program. And he talks about tells his students how important the connections, the relationships that they're building at a young age. Don't chase the paycheck, chase those relationships because you never know 10, 15 years down the road when those relationships are more powerful than currency.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I tell people like that come to work here. I mean, we're hiring a lot of our average age is 28. And so we're hiring a lot of young people who really like so I try to hire people who want to be here, not people who want a job. And I try to tell our newer, younger candidates like build relationships with people here because like my attitude towards hiring people, and you've probably heard me say this, like the average employee stays at a company like 2.5 years now if they're under the age of 40. Okay. So we manage from that perspective. And my goal for everyone at Portal is I know you're not going to be here forever. I want you to look back and say, this is the biggest jumping off point I've ever had. So I tell people here on their first day, like, build as many relationships as you can. You may be working next to the future CEO of a company. You know what I mean? Or you may be
Yeah.
working next to somebody who's going to like go do great things, and that's nothing to do with me, but like the relationships and the connections that is, and we went on a completely different direction with this, but
Yeah,
like
we did.
that's really where sorry,
No, it's all good.
that's really where the value is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, we're coming up on our time here. I don't want to keep you longer than I promised, but man, I appreciate you sharing some of your insight and some of your wisdom about this idea of making less bad decisions leads to success, right? There's a proverb, it's one of my favorite proverbs. It says, wealth built quickly is lost, but whoever gathers little by little keeps it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's that's so great. And borrower is slave to the lender.
the lender is the
Yeah,
debtor is the lender's slave.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
the debtor is the lender's slave. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But it's there's so many things with life and business that can be related to golf.
Yeah.
And by the way, like I'm a proponent too of, if you're bad at something, this kind of parlays from that. I don't really spend any time trying to improve my weaknesses.
Mm.
I try to hire people who are good at the thing I'm bad at. And
Hire the weakness and improve your strength.
yeah, like I'll give you an example. My handwriting is god awful. It is terrible. It's about the only thing I'm self-conscious about. It's bad. It's really bad. Okay. My mom blames my kindergarten teacher because she never taught me how to hold my pencil right. But I've created an environment in here where nobody ever has to write anything down.
That's funny.
I don't do any handwritten notes, like nothing, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like figure out what your weaknesses are and then build around that.
So you built a an agency, a progressive agency, like forward thinking
Yeah.
digital agency, just so you don't have to write.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
Exactly. It once a month when I have to like hand write an envelope, I'll walk out to my assistant and I'll be like, "Hey, write this on here for me."
I mean, I have anytime the most stressful thing I have to do, and it's few and far between, is when I have to mail something.
Yeah.
Dude, like I have this immediate like panic attack. I start sweating. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta address an envelope and I gotta how do I even get it to the mail person? I don't even know how to do that. Right?
We use a company called lob.com
Yeah, I
to
think you told me about them. Yeah.
checks
Yeah.
because I don't want to have to sit there and handwrite a freaking check and then I have a record of everything. And the only time I have to handwrite one is if it's like uh something needs to be sent like right away because there is a delay to
Yeah.
sending that lob thing. But yeah, I mean, build to your strengths, not your weaknesses. Don't put it all on the table. Be smart and
Make less bad decisions, y'all.
make less bad decisions. I mean, that's really like, I'll give you something else. I'll give you something else.
This
All right.
this is great, man.
This is something I talked about recently. So somebody asked me, here's one of my problems. You want to know what one of my problems is right now?
Hmm.
I don't have
You
enough.
can't write auto insurance in Ohio easily.
Exactly. I don't, I was telling, and this is not like, I'm like not depressed about this or anything, but like I struggle locally finding other business owners who are in a similar situation that I can like be friends with.
Hmm.
And somebody said, and I have a lot of friends nationally I talk to every day. You're one of them. Um, Somebody said, "Why don't you hang out with such and such?" I'm like, "Because he's single." And they're like, "What do you?" And this was a young guy asking me this, and I was like, "What do you?" He's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "I, as a married man, usually do not go out with single guys. It's a recipe for trouble."
That's probably good. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like we all
Yeah.
have some of those friends that it's like
Yeah.
can't just go out and have a good time. Like somebody's going up in the hospital, somebody's going up in jail. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like that's another like don't make stupid decisions. Like
Less. Yeah.
It's the whole like when you've got teenagers, like don't hang out with the wrong people. Like that you're
Yeah.
the sum of the five people you're with. Like if you're with this
Right.
person who's doing this bad thing, you're going to be guilty by association at the very best.
Yep. It's good stuff, man. I'm
So
just waiting. I'm waiting for another word of wisdom.
that's all I got, man. I'm
That's all you
exhausted.
got today?
Too much extroverting.
You're out. Cool. Bradley, appreciate your time, man. I appreciate your friendship.
Thank you. You too.